So with that, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to TNT. So this is my TntConnect database. What we're planning to cover today is tasks, so how to schedule things and use this for PD planning. We're going to talk about the history tab, which is where you log all of the touches and interactions that you've had with your partners. And then we'll also go over reports. So there's a few different reports that TNT allows you to run. And then we'll go over this analysis tab as well. So that's kind of where we're going today. We're going to start off with talking about the task tab. And so you'll see here in this main screen where the third tab over is tasks. And a couple of different things to notice. The first is that these tasks, the top few tasks, also appear at the top of the screen where it says next task. So you're actually kind of seeing them in two different places. The second thing to notice is that I'm only seeing the tasks for the individual record that I'm looking at the moment. So right now I'm looking at Donald and Daisy Duck, and so I'm seeing the tasks that I scheduled for that specific contact. If I want to see the tasks or the schedule that I've created for all of my contacts at the same time, there are a couple of different ways that you can go about doing that. The first way that you can do it is right here on this screen. Is instead of having individual chosen, you can choose current group. Before I show you that, what I want to remind you is that your current group is this list of contacts right here in the left-hand column where it says contacts. So if you run any kind of filter, which we're going to talk about next week, but if you do any kind of search, and so this is only reflecting your financial partners, or it's only reflecting the people who are in Texas, when I click this current group button, it's only going to show the information for the people that happen to be over on this side of the screen. Okay, just kind of keep that in mind. That's caused a lot of frustration for a lot of people, is forgetting that little caveat about what the current group is referring to. So when I click the current group button, you'll see it expanded how many tasks there are because it's now including all of my contacts. Another place to see this is over here on the left where it says tasks. And this screen will actually give you a little bit more options about how you can view your tasks. The first is, of course, noticing that they're color-coded. So they try to do that so your eyes can skim the page a little bit easier. And then they also have these little symbols to kind of indicate what kind of task it is. So you'll see the phone goes with calls, envelopes with thanks and letters, the calendar with appointments. And so they try to just give you some visual cues to orient you into what's going on with the screen. Some of the extra choices that you have on the screen is this date range. And so if you just want to see your future tasks, you can go to, well, this would be tomorrow, this is today, past and today. So they show you what they're, what they indicate. The custom range, you'll see there's two different fields here. You can either choose two specific dates. So if you wanted to see everything between yesterday and 2 days from now, you could set the date on these just by clicking the down arrow and choosing what dates you want them to look at. The other way that you can use this is just by unchecking this little box. So if I uncheck the box, TNT is going to look infinitely into the past to see which tasks I haven't completed. If I uncheck the box on the bottom, it's going to look infinitely into the future. So if you want there to be no time limit on the task that you're looking at, that's the way that you can sort of remove those limiters. You can also look at tasks by type. So for example, you're sitting down to do phone calls today, then you could click on the call type, and it would just bring up those contacts that you need to make phone calls for. Okay, and you can do that with others as well. So if you're writing thank you cards, you could click on thank, and it would bring up those people that you need to do things for. You'll notice that some of these are red. A lot of those are, so there's certain kinds of tasks that TNT auto-create, and so I'm going to show you in a minute how to schedule a task. But there are tasks that TNT itself generates on its own. And some of those tasks include things like the first time somebody makes a gift, they're going to auto-generate a task reminding you to thank that partner. If a partner has lapsed in their giving, TNT will auto-generate a task asking you to call that contact to check on what happened. Same thing if there's a discrepancy in how much they promised versus how much they actually gave. So for example, if a partner promised $100 a month, but they only gave 50, TNT will auto-generate a task indicating that you should contact that partner to find out why there's a discrepancy. So you'll see that occur from time to time. They also auto-generate some history items, but we'll talk about that here in a little bit. To schedule a task, you're just going to use this schedule button here in the middle. So click schedule, and you'll see that they gave me several different options. So again, appointment, call, email, letter, think, newsletter, messaging. Now, one thing that we're going to talk about in a little while is that TNT syncs directly with MailChimp. And so if you have MailChimp and TNT synced together, TNT will auto-generate history items to show that you sent out newsletters, but that's not the same with Facebook, text messaging, and WhatsApp. So if you're using Facebook or a text message or WhatsApp message, you have to not only send the message, but then also take a log of it here. Okay, so it's a little bit different between MailChimp and the other three is the way they integrate together. There's also some other options here, so to-do and present. So if there's items, like a to-do is something that maybe you want to do prayer requests for your partners in TNT. Using the to-do would be one of the ways to do that. And so let me show you how to do just an appointment, and then we'll go back and talk a little bit more about this to-do option. So with the appointment, one thing to notice is the type. You can actually change the type of communication right from this screen. So you don't, if you clicked appointment but meant to click phone call, you don't have to cancel out and come back. You can just change it right here. And then you want to give a description. So it's helpful to give, it's important to give helpful descriptions because these descriptions become searchable. And so we've had questions in the past about, can I set priority settings on some of my task items so that I know which ones are more urgent? So while TNT doesn't have, say, like a button like Outlook has, you can't just mark something as urgent. You can type that directly into the description. And then later on when you're going to sit down to use this for your PD, is you could type in urgent and it'll bring up all those tasks. I'm going to demonstrate that for you. So I'm going to go ahead and mark this one urgent. Okay, so I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. We're going to talk about labels here in just a few minutes, but urgent is going to become a label for me. And then I'm going to say urgent appointment for first ask. And you can say, obviously, whatever is going to be most descriptive for you there. And then you want to set the date. So you can just click on the date on the calendar where you want to meet, where you plan to meet that person. And then you can also choose the time. So you can either type the time in. So I can just type in 11:30 a.m. Or I can actually go over here and click. And you'll see that it does the same thing. If I click at the top of the rectangle, it'll give me the top of the hour. And if I click down a little bit further, it switches it over to 30 minutes. This portion here is your duration. So if you want to do 60 minutes, you can either type in 60, so you have 60 minutes, or you can type in 1, and then just make sure you flip that over to an hour. Be a little bit careful with this because most calendars will automatically change some of these settings for you and try to guess what you're doing, and this one does not. So I've accidentally set this for 30 hours before. So just make sure that you're watching the things that you set as you're setting your appointments. How often gives you the opportunity to make reoccurring tasks? So for example, if you're going to send a partner a thank you card every 3 months, you might want to set that up here. Well, I guess this one doesn't really give a 3 month. So yeah, so if you went monthly and then did, oh, I thought you could do every 3 months. Here we go. So you could change it here. Okay, so the second Thursday of every 3 months. And then say okay, and it's going to start auto-generating that task for you. You can also do this for birthday cards, anniversary cards, anything that's going to be repetitive. You can set up a recurring task so that you don't have to try to remember to put it in. Okay. and then OK, and it'll add the task to your list. I was talking a little bit about labels, and so urgent was one of those labels. Let me go back in here. Okay. And so if you're trying to set priority, or if you, there's different labels that you can use that will help you organize some of this information. So if you want to set priorities like urgent or not as important, again, you're just going to type that label in, but you're going to be able to save your labels. So if you use this down arrow to the far right and click Edit List, so you might not have anything here right now, but if you click Edit List, it'll open the screen, and you can see that you can add. So you can add new labels, or you can also delete them just by clicking delete and modify to edit. You'll notice that I also have prayer in here. So I've had some people ask, is there a way to track prayer requests in TNT? And this is kind of the way that you would do that. So if you're praying, if a partner has made a prayer request and you want to track it or remind yourself to do it, just go ahead and create a prayer label. Oops. Sorry, my computer's not behaving today. Okay, so go ahead and use this prayer label and then type what the prayer request is after it. So prayer for travel to Texas. Okay, or maybe there's a health need or whatever else is going on for that partner. So you can go ahead and type the need directly in there and then just give it some future date. So if it's travel, maybe you know they're traveling on April 6th, and so you choose April 6th. They're having a medical appointment. Maybe you choose the day of their appointment. However you want to schedule that, and then click OK. Okay, and now the way that you can look those up, so you don't have to go contact by contact to look up, but you can actually just jump over. You can jump over to your tasks, and in the search bar here at the top, okay, you see the little magnifying glass over at the far right. Is type in prayer and hit enter. I think selected. Okay, and you'll see that it pulled up all of the tasks that have that prayer label on it. So now I know who I need to pray for. You can do the same thing with the urgent label. So if you mark some things urgent, you can type in urgent, and now it's going to pull up only the tasks that I have that urgent tab on. To clear it, you just get rid of it and hit enter again, and it'll bring back your entire list of tasks. So that's some of the things that you can do with your tasks to schedule. Unfortunately, TNT doesn't have any sort of like pop-up reminders. And so it's not that you're going to open the application or start your computer and automatically get reminders about these things. You do have to actually come in here and look, which is unfortunate. In the FAQs, I am including a resource that will help you connect this to Google Calendar. If you want to do that, and then through Google Calendar, you're able to set that up a little bit better. I've not personally done that, but I know a lot of people who appreciate having that feature for TNT, so that's something that you can do. The next thing that we're going to talk about is history. And so history is just the next tab over, and this is the things that have already been done. So if you're using this to schedule and you finish an item, so let's say I finish the letter that I was going to write, and I check the box. It's going to start going through the steps to log this into your history. There's a few different settings that you can use on the screen. The first is this log history checkbox. If you uncheck that and click OK, they're not going to keep a record of it. And so I've used that a couple of times when my database has auto-generated the task that I didn't want to do. I just unchecked this, said OK, clear it from my task list, but didn't log it as something I'd actually done with my partner. So that would be the reason probably where you would not want that to remain checked. The second is this by. So if you're a couple, husband and wife that are using the same database, and you're trying to check or track your activities for your PD coach, or for whatever reason you just want to know who did what, you can add users onto this list and select who completed the activity. And then the last is this edit the logged history item after you click OK. You can do a lot with this, but if you uncheck it and click OK, then the item is going to be logged to your history list and you'll just be done. However, if you leave this checked and then click OK, it's going to take you to this next screen. Your description should already be there, but it's going to give you the opportunity to put notes. And so I've seen this used for lots of really good things. Some people have different kinds of thank you cards they send out. So maybe they have some thank you cards with trees and some with crosses and some with birds. Well, if I sent the tree one the first time, I want to send the bird one the second time. And so this is just a way for you to be able to remember that. You can say what kind of thank you card you did use. You could say what scripture verse you included. You could write the message here so that you remember what you said to your partner. I've also seen it suggested that for people who are doing emails with their partners is they actually copy the text of the email, including my response and the partner's response. So I have a running log of my written communication with those partners. So there's a lot of things that you can do with this note section if that's something that's important to your PD. Okay.
Jen, we've got a question.
Sure.
TNT is auto-generating a task to research why pastor and church have the same email address. This is correct, but even after checking it done, it keeps coming back. Can I clear this task?
There's a place where you can set different kinds of auto tasks, and so you might have to turn that one off. It's automatic actions. I've not heard that particular issue before. I don't see that as one of the options here. What you might need to do, because I'm not sure of that answer off the top of my head, is if you go down to this community button on the bottom left and just leave it as questions. You might have to sign into this with your Google account. The reason that they would want you to sign in is because if you send a question, they're going to want a way to let you know that somebody has responded. But you can go over to the forums, okay, and then write a new post and put your question in. Typically, you get a response back within about 48 hours at max. I've always gotten an answer the same day, but they have people who are experts in TNT that regularly check this for those sorts of things. So Troy, you'll see Troy's name is on a lot of these. So he actually answers them, and he's the creator of the platform. So it might be best to go ahead and put your question here, just because I don't know the answer off the top of my head, and I'm not sure what you would type into a search to help figure that out. Please do let me know though. Michelle, if you'll put my email address into the chat, if you decide to reach out to the forum community, if you'll let me know if they give you a response, in case that happens to other people. So once you've logged your history, okay, you'll start seeing those show up on your history screen. So again, they do auto-generate history items for you. Some of the scenarios in which they do that is if you change an address for one of your partners, whether it's because it's changed in Unity or because you've gone in and manually done that, they will create an auto task for you so that they keep a record of that old address and let you know when you changed over to the new address. They also auto-generate tasks. Let me show you here. There's plus and minus ones. So when a partner increases or decreases the amount they're giving, I did not generate these tasks or these history items. They automatically did it for me. So they keep those records. I think those are the only history items. They'll also automatically do the MailChimp ones. So when I added this contact to my MailChimp list, I didn't come back here and tell TNT that I did it. They automatically generated that. Same thing when if I were to send out a MailChimp newsletter to these contacts, TNT would pick that up and create a history item for me. So those are some of the auto history items. And of course, you can use this if you haven't made a task. So if you didn't schedule it, but you completed it, you can just use this log history button and log it that way. Some people don't like using the task list. That's not how they want to keep their PD scheduled, but they do want to have a record of their history. And so they'll only use the history tab instead of both. You would also, of course, use this, even if you are using the tasks menu, you would also use this to make notes or to do unscheduled visits, because you're not going to schedule an unscheduled visit. So if you bump into somebody at the back of the church, or you get an unexpected phone call, maybe you bump into each other at the grocery store, whatever, however that works for you, but you want to keep a record of the conversation, then you would choose unscheduled visit and then just fill out the form with what notes you want to remember from that encounter. The other thing is that this also works the same way as the task one does, is it's highly searchable. And so if you wanted to search your history for thank you cards because you want to remember what thank you card you sent last, this would be a way to look that up. So the better notes you do in your description and in choosing what type of activity, the easier it's going to be to use a search function later on. So if you plan to use that, just kind of be mindful of how you're labeling things. And of course you can use these too, so you can still look up your things and things like that. Any questions about those two tabs, tasks and history? You can log a group history item. So for example, if you're getting ready to send out calendars to all of your financial prayer partners, and maybe you have 50 financial prayer partners, and you really don't want to go in and log individual history items for all 50 people, you can do it all at once. The way that you do that is you want to look them up as a group first. I'm going to do this a little bit on the fast side, but it's because next week we're going to go over in way more detail how to use the lookup feature. So if you get a little bit lost, don't worry, we're going to come back to it. I'm going to look at my financial partners. So I'm going to the TNT phase and saying partner financial, and then okay. And now you'll notice that it's only the green names, because the green name indicates a financial partner. And so now that I have just my financial partners on that screen, I can do group actions that will only target these people. Okay, so if I go up to group actions and say log group history, well, I want to do a gift. So I'm going to go down to present. And I'm going to say yearly calendar. Sorry about my keyboard. Yearly Wycliffe calendar. If you want to make some notes, maybe you included a letter or a handwritten card or something along with it. And click OK. Are you sure you want to log history for all 7 contacts in this current group? Yes, I do. Okay, and now I don't have to do it individually. It's automatically logged for each of those individuals. One of the ways that you can use this well is if you're doing thank you cards. So maybe you send thank you cards out in batches. If you have 65 partners, maybe you don't do all 65 in 1 month, but you break them up into 3 months. If that's something that you do, you'd still want to create groups for your partners. So, and we'll talk about that in a lot more detail next week. But there is this group function you'll see on the left. There's a couple of other ways that you can put partners into groups. I talked about that a little bit on the first video from a couple of weeks ago. But once you put your partners into groups, you'd be able to do the same thing. So you'd be able to look them up, create a task, or create a history item for them, and do it all at once. But it's always going to have to be a group that you're able to look up. Again, we'll go over that in more detail next week. But it's an interesting way to organize your PD if that's something that would be helpful for you. And that's pretty much the basics as far as using the scheduler and the history items. The next thing that we're going to look at is the different reports that are available to you in TNT. And so TNT makes, these 3 are the popular reports. So the first is a pledge fulfillment report. And this is going to refer to the dots. Hold on just a second. This is going to refer to these little colored dots that are next to each of your partners. Those dots reflect how current your partner is in their promised giving. So a green dot means that they promised $100 a month. They've been giving $100 a month. A yellow dot indicates that they're a month behind. So they're about 30 days behind. And then red indicates that they're a couple months behind. And of course, if they turn red, you're going to want to start contacting them to see what's going on, what's happened in their relapse giving. The teal color that you see is, you'll see that I've said that they've pledged, they've made a promise to give $25 a month, but there's no actual gift here. And so that indicates told TNT they're going to be a financial partner, but they've not followed through with their promise yet. There are also 2 different colored purple dots, and those purple dots indicate a special financial gift. So they're not a regular partner, but they've given a one-time gift in the past. So that's kind of a rundown of what those dots mean. And this pledge fulfillment report helps you look these up quickly. So again, if you have 500 people on your contact list, you don't want to have to scroll down to find out who's relapsed and who's up to date on their giving. So instead, you'd run this pledge fulfillment report and then do lookup contacts, and it's going to just pull up the contacts who have lapsed for 60 or more days. And now I know that I need to target these people to follow up about their giving. Okay. One thing, and I emphasized this in the first video, but I'm going to just kind of say it here again, is when you have a filter placed on top of your contacts. So like I know I'm doing these lookups fast, but we'll go over it better. If I just have my financial partners up and I want to see all of my contacts at the same time, for me it was instinctive to hit this X button to cross it out, but that just gets rid of your contact list altogether. That made me panic the first time it happened. To get your contacts back, when you do that, you want to click this little icon next to the bullhorn, and it'll bring them back up. But you'll notice the filter is still there. And so to get rid of the filter, you actually need to use the filter icon right there, and it'll bring everybody back. That's been one of the more frustrating features of TNT for me. Okay, so that's the pledge fulfillment report. The next report is the contribution report. And so this is a way for you to see all of your partners giving at over a year, 13 months, 14 months, all at one time. So if you want to do a printout of this information, this is how you can go about doing it. Again, you can tell TNT how many months you want. Maybe you're just looking at the past 6 months. Okay, now I'll just give you the past 6 months of the year. You'll notice they give you the mailing address and phone number and email, and that's assuming that you're using this report to see who you need to talk to. So if you're using this for contact information, they give you all that contact information right there. You'll see that you do have some options about who to include. So it includes gifts synced to the web, includes gift not synced to the web. What this is referring to is on your TNT tab. If you manually enter a gift, so for example, say a partner gave you a $50 gift card for Christmas or something for your family, and you want to, even though that gift isn't going to come into Wycliffe, you still want to have a record of that in TNT. So you would do add new gift, put the $50 in, maybe make a memo that it was a gift card. Okay, and especially if it was if it was a personal gift, Wycliffe won't take the 10% and the assessment off of it. And so we would switch this over to personal gift, or it's not available on the web. So if somebody writes a check to you, but it's for your ministry, so you still need to report that to Wycliffe, this is a way that you can add that gift into your database, do it manually, and then take this available on the web off. The reason that's important to do is if you leave that checked, if you tell it it's available on the web, every time you try to import your donor information from Unity into TNT, it's going to look for that gift. And when the gift's not there, they're going to try to delete it, okay, because they're going to think it's an error. But if you uncheck this, or if you check personal gift and say, okay, then TNT isn't going to try to delete it anymore. Okay, so that's sort of a helpful thing to know. I'm going to delete this because I want this partner to be read. There we go. So that's your contribution report. And then the last report is the birthday and anniversary report. So it looks like it's blank when you first start up, and that's because it wants you to make your selections before it builds the report. So you can include everyone. Again, you can include just the current group. So maybe you only send out birthday and anniversary cards to your financial partners, or you want to include your prayer partners. You would look up that group of contacts first before running this report. Exclude deceased. We encourage you not to delete partners, especially if they've been financial partners in the past. If a partner passes away, we encourage you to mark them as deceased instead of deleting them completely from your database. The reason for that is we don't want you to lose your financial information from those partners. So if you go ahead and just mark them deceased instead of deleting their contacts, you maintain your financial records while also having them excluded from things like this report, mail merge documents, and things like that. And then you can choose whether or not you want to have birthdays, anniversaries, or both. And then once you've made those selections, you can click Build Report, and it'll give you a chronological report of birthdays and anniversaries for the year. Okay. And you'll notice that you can move this into Excel so that you can print it out or make any edits that you want to make. But that's a pretty helpful report for a lot of people. Okay. Then the next thing that we're going to talk about is the Analysis tab. So that's this tab on the far left here. And this is the screen that's going to tell you what's going on across all of your contacts in TNT. Okay, so one thing to keep in mind is as you're entering your donations or your promises, financial gifts from your different partners, is that you have to have this box checked. Okay, so if you just put in this and the amount and how often that person's going to give, but you forget to check it, that gift will not be included in your analysis. So in order for it to occur in your analysis, you have to check the little box. Important thing to keep in mind. Then once you've done that, you have your monthly goal. So to change your monthly goal, you can just double click on it and it'll bring up this dialog box and you can change your amount there. Okay. So that's an easy way to change your amount. One thing to notice is this little green flashy bar at the top. I've had lots of questions about that bar in the past, and you can't do anything with it. It's just there. It's flashing because the creator thinks it's pretty, I think. But it's just giving you a visual representation of how close you are to 100%. So once the green bar gets all the way to the right, it's at 100%. And that's all it does. So you can't manipulate it. See, if I hover over it, it tells me I'm 16% fully funded. But you can't like click and drag it. You can't right click on it. You can't really do anything with it. It's just showing you how far along you are. Okay. Total pledges, again, is all the gifts that you've placed into your database and put that check mark next to the pledge. Okay, so that's how it's getting this number. Average monthly, maybe somebody promised to give 100 a month, but every once in a while they also give a special one-time gift on top of that. Well, then their average monthly is going to increase. So maybe on average they end up giving $110 a month. I don't know why my Microsoft Outlook just broke. But that'll be your average monthly, and then you have this amount to raise. The average monthly is not figured into the amount to raise. So the amount to raise is just your monthly goal minus your total pledges. The average monthly is just for your information. You can click on the little arrows and you'll see that they break it down a little bit more. Okay, so if you're interested in all of that data, that information is there. Contacts and referral pool. On hand today, this is looking at your TNT phase. So right here, where you have ask in the future, call for appointment scheduled, call for decision. If you have one of these selected, TNT is going to consider that a contact that you have on hand today, because they consider that meaning this is a potential partner for you. Gain this week is just what it says. If you've put new contacts into your database, that's a contact that you've gained for that week. And then contacts that are more than 1 month old, again, contacts that you've added that are more than a month old. It's just what it says. But again, these are only contacting, you'll notice this isn't all the contacts in my database. This is only counting the people that are on my list of potential partners. Okay, so people who haven't said no yet, haven't said yes yet. That's what's going to show up there. Weekly activities, if you are using the task and the log functions of TNT, it'll give you some information here. Okay, so it'll just show you how many you've done. Again, some people use this to interact with their PD coaches, and so it's just a way to kind of keep track of those tasks. And of course, they have these visual charts for you to look at. This is showing what my giving is by state, average monthly gifts by state, but you have a whole bunch of options that you can look at. So you can look at TNT phases by church, by group, so all your groups will populate here. And then you can also analyze monthly pledge amounts, number of financial partners. So there's lots of things that you can do with this. I've not personally used this screen very much for my own PD, but I think some people have used it to plan PD trips and things like that. So it just depends on what this data means for you. You can also look at this as a pie chart. That's more helpful for you, or a source data grid. Okay. Well, there's quite a bit that you could do as far as visual representations of what's going on with your PD. The last thing that I had planned to talk about today is the options menu. And I kind of referred to that earlier today. If you go to this tools menu and go all the way down to the bottom, you have options. And options is just going to give you access to a lot of the different areas in TNT that are editable. So originally I went to the analysis tab and showed you how you can change your monthly support goal. This is another place where you can change it. You can change the first day of the week you want. If you want to lock down your database, if you need your database to be more secure, you can force it to use a password to sign into the database. Of course, keep track of your password if you decide to do that. You can also tell it to not automatically back up your database. I'm not entirely sure why you would do that. I think it's just good for your database to be automatically backing up so that if it does crash, you don't lose your data. This checkbox can be important if you have put your database into Dropbox. And the reason for doing that, of course, is if you have multiple users. So, or if you want to use your database on more than one computer. So if you want to use it at your home computer and your work computer, you might put it in Dropbox. If you have a husband's computer and a wife's computer, and you want both people to be able to work on it from their own computer, Dropbox is a good option for that. So if you've set it up in Dropbox for multiple users, some people don't want both users to be able to make edits at the same time. The reason for that is it could cause a conflict in the data if you both are changing the same information at the same time. If that occurs, Dropbox typically notices that this has happened, and it'll flag it for you. So where there's a little green checkbox right now, this would turn into a little red X, letting you know that there's a conflict, and then it would actually walk you through the steps of letting you choose which information is correct. If you don't want that to ever become a problem, you can go ahead and check this box. I think it's checked by default to prevent multiple users at the same time. What happens when you do this is the first person who opens the database is able to make edits. The second person who opens it up in a read-only mode. The only warning I have about this, I have seen it backfire on people, is that they checked this box, they opened it at their workplace, and then forgot to shut it down, came home and tried to work on their database, and now it's locked down because the other person has it in the edit mode. So you're now in read-only mode. So there's some things to think through. Again, Dropbox does do its best to catch any conflicts in data. So it's up to you how you want to go about doing that. And I'm not going to go through all of these options just because there's so many of them. But if you want to see all the different things that you can do, you can click through each of these options. You'll see this mapping, allow Google to map contacts. I'll talk about this next week also. If you click this map icon, you'll actually have a map pull up that maps your contacts, which is nice for PD trips and things like that. But if you feel wary about that for whatever reason, you can uncheck that, and then Google won't be able to map your contacts. newsletters, donors. So you see there's lots and lots of different things that you can do with this. This is one of the ways that you can do groups, tasks, phone. So there's lots and lots and lots of information that you can do with this. Make sure that I hit all the ones I meant to talk about. Okay. If you need to update your database, so they're constantly putting out new versions with new features, with clearing up bugs and things like that that are going on in the software program. A lot of times those updates will appear at the bottom of your screen where it currently says, there's like a little smiley face that says, please help. Most of the time when there's a new update, it'll show up down there. That text will turn red and let you know that it's time to update your database. Another way to check though, if you're curious, is to go to help and go to check for updates, and it'll make sure that you're at the newest version. So right now I have a newer version available and I can upgrade now. Okay, so that's just one of the ways to check that. So that's basically the information that I planned on going over today. We went over the task tab, the history tab, we talked about reports, and then we also went over the analysis tab. So I want to give you guys some time to ask questions. You can ask questions about what I covered today. You can also ask questions about things that were covered in the video from the basic session. Next week, we're going to go over kind of tips and tricks. I'm going to show you how to use this lookup menu a lot better. So we'll go over all the different features that go into lookups. We'll also talk about groups. So I kind of referred to that a little bit today. And then I'll talk about how to do mail merges, so how to create envelopes and labels. So if those are some of the things that you're interested in, we will go over all those things next week. So again, we're going to go ahead and kick it to you guys. Let me know if you have any questions. I see one question is there a way to make the font size bigger in the list of contacts at the left? I want to say, there used to be a button that lets you do that. But it's not working with me right now. Let's see if I have a note about that. So I just hit the F12. So yes and no is really the answer to that question. There's really not a way to zoom in on this current list screen. But once you are into the contact that you're looking for, if you need their address to be larger, if you click the F12 button on your keyboard, it does give you the zoomed in version of their address. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that's the only way I'm aware of to magnify that information. Not seeing any questions. One other thing I want to point out that seems to trip up a lot of people is this gift input button. Those of us at Wycliffe USA cannot use that gift input button. If you try, you're going to become very frustrated. The reason for that is that this program was created for smaller organizations than Wycliffe USA. And for that reason, the price is outrageous for an organization of our size. And so we're not able to use that feature. However, if you go to Unity and go to your donor history page, there's a button on there that says TNT, that's for TNT. If you click that button, it's going to download a document. If you double click and open it, it'll open directly into your TNT. And it'll take you through the steps that you need to go through to get your donor information into your database. You could also, if you've downloaded it and you go to Tools, Upload Donor Gift Info from File, you can browse your computer to find that same document and upload it into your database. So there's a couple of ways to do it. It does not automatically put it in there. You do have to manually download If you do it more than once a month, it won't create duplicates as long as you tell it to overwrite information that's already there. Okay, so do make sure that you read all the prompts and options they give you on your different, as you're doing different tasks. Okay. Any other questions? I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording because I'm not seeing any other questions come through, but I will stay around for another 10 minutes. So let me know if there's anything else any other questions or thoughts that you have about this.